and my best friend recently broke up with her hurtful ex-boyfriend and is mad at me for not letting her back into my life. For context, we've been friends for 15 years. Some background info. She started dating him 2 years ago and quickly moved in with him after 3 months of dating. When they lived together, she realized that he was controlling, didn't want her going to clubs or speaking to any men, and made her pay all the bills plus cooking and cleaning. He was fine with her hanging out with me and her family, but having men around was an absolute no. I was really understanding and supportive of her. I would spend 3 to 4 hours on the phone almost on a daily basis with her, trying to support her and be a shoulder that she can lean on. I tried my best to encourage her to go out and would make lots of plans, which she would always cancel in the morning of the day we were supposed to go out. I noticed a sudden change in her behavior, where she stopped caring and asking about me. She only ever called me or texted me to talk about herself and her now ex. She never asked me anything about my life, which at the time I didn't care about as I just wanted to be there for her. Mid-last year, I was really struggling with some things in my personal life. My family was treating me really badly. I lost a very dear friend of mine. I started to go to therapy to tackle childhood trauma, which I refused to do for a long time. To put it bluntly, last year was the worst year of my life. I was suicidal, depressed. Therapy was unlocking these feelings in me that I kept buried. I told my best friend about it, but she just simply didn't care. She never asked me things like, "How are you? How's therapy?" She never supported me through these things. I would go weeks without speaking to her, and then she would randomly call me and not ask a single thing about me and start talking about her boyfriend. Eventually, I got really upset and sent her a text in July this year that her behavior has really upset me. It feels like she doesn't care about me and she only wants to talk to me to complain about her partner. She didn't reply for over a month, then sent a short text back saying, "When are you free so we can talk about the above?" It was such a cold message. No empathy or an apology. We arranged a day to meet, and she canceled in the morning because she said there was a bike race, so she can't walk to the station. She had moved out of the ex's place by this point, and she now lives 15 minutes away from me. I've ignored her since that message, and recently I learned she broke up with her ex a few months ago and is going through a tough time. I'm quite close to her aunt, who told me all of this, and she said she's really depressed and needs my support. She said I would be a jerk to throw away the friendship we've had since we were kids. I explained to her aunt everything I went through last year. I told her I was going through the worst time of my life and I needed my best friend, and she wasn't there. I told her that unless she apologizes for how she treated me, I'm not letting her back into my life. Her aunt pretty much invalidated my feelings and said, well, she was in a controlling relationship. She's had it tough, so just be the bigger person and try to fix things. Her aunt told me that she's feeling mad at me for ignoring her and not being there for her. My sister is also on the aunt's side, saying that she was in a hurtful relationship and that can take a toll on your mental health. So I just need to swallow my feelings and be there for her. Now I feel like I've been a jerk for ignoring her and not letting her back into my life. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Tell your aunt and your sister that they are more than welcome to provide that support. They need to step up to the plate if they are so concerned. It's possible that they have and are too exhausted. They may want a relief, and you've been nominated. I believe you made the right choice. Your ex-friend is an emotional vampire, someone who takes and never gives. You finally noticed when you were in deep need, and she refused to show any concern. Not only that, she backed out of following through on talking it out. Her aunt is naturally concerned about her, but that doesn't mean her aunt gets to twist your arm and manipulate you into being there for her. Again, tell both of them that they need to step up and be there for your ex-friend. If they finally admit they are exhausted, tell them that they need to get her into therapy then. You're not willing to be their relief. Comment 2. You know, I really despise the phrase, be the bigger person. Like, what the actual frick? No, I'm not going to sacrifice my mental health to bend over and take it from someone who clearly doesn't give a flying fuck about my own struggles. Why? Why do you have to swallow your feelings? Friendships are either mutualistic, where both benefit from the relationship, not always in equal measure, but it is mutually supportive, or parasitic. You would not be the jerk if you decide you're not in a place to let her suck you dry. Don't drown yourself trying to save someone who's likely to pull you under. Now for the update. After my last post, I was feeling pretty conflicted about the whole situation. My best friend, let's call her Sarah, had been trying to reach out to me, but I was still hurt by how she'd treated me when I needed her the most. I was torn between being there for her and protecting my own mental health. Then, out of the blue, Sarah showed up at my door. She was a mess. Eyes red from crying, and she begged me to talk to her. I couldn't just shut the door in her face, so I let her in. We sat down and she started to apologize profusely for everything. She told me she realized how much she had neglected our friendship and how sorry she was. I was hesitant, but I listened. She explained that her ex had been even worse than I knew. He had isolated her from everyone, not just men, and had been monitoring her phone. That's why she hadn't been there for me. She was scared he would find out and punish her. It was a lot to take in, and part of me felt guilty for not seeing the signs earlier. We talked for hours, and it felt like we were finally making progress in repairing our friendship. But then, she dropped a bombshell. Sarah confessed that during the time she was with her ex, she had developed feelings for someone else. It was someone I knew, someone we both knew very well. It was my brother. I was stunned. My brother had been there for me through everything last year, and I had no idea that he and Sarah had gotten close. Sarah told me that nothing had happened between them, but the guilt of her feelings had been eating away at her, especially since she knew how much I was struggling. I didn't know what to feel. Betrayed, angry, sad. It was all swirling inside me. I asked her to leave, saying I needed time to think. After she left, I called my brother and he confirmed it. He said he had feelings for her too, but he never acted on them because he knew it would hurt me. The next few days were a blur. I avoided Sarah's calls and texts. I couldn't face her or my brother. I felt like the two people I trusted most had let me down. My sister tried to mediate, saying that feelings can't be helped and that Sarah was in a vulnerable place, but it didn't make it any easier. Then, another confrontation happened. Sarah showed up again, this time with my brother. They wanted to explain everything together to make sure there were no secrets between us. It was intense, to say the least. They told me that they had bonded over their concern for me, and that's how they grew close. They swore nothing had happened physically, but the emotional connection was there. I was heartbroken. Not because I had feelings for my brother. That would be weird. But because I felt like I had lost both my best friend and my confidant. I had been so wrapped up in my own issues that I hadn't noticed the growing distance between us. Sarah begged for my forgiveness, and my brother looked like he was on the verge of tears. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to forgive them, to go back to how things were before all this mess. But another part of me was scared of getting hurt again. As of now, I haven't made a decision. I'm still reeling from the revelations and trying to figure out if I can trust them again. It's hard to imagine my life without Sarah and my brother, but it's also hard to forget the pain they've caused. My husband blew our savings on a $40,000 car to impress his boss. He thought he was winning, but the look on his face when the firm's reaction was priceless. My husband works at a law firm and he comes from a humble background and tends to shy away from material luxuries and prefers to spend money on experiences. No problem. The issue is his colleagues are very much into appearances, and he would often complain about getting hit with slight jabs regarding his car. Mostly everyone drives a higher-end car, while he drives a simple sedan. It appears that he reached a boiling point when his mentor suggested he rent a car for the annual Christmas party, so instead he went out and bought a new car. He did not discuss it with me and did not even tell me. When I asked about it, he simply told me he did it so he could keep his sanity while at work. I do not work in a competitive professional career where status and appearance are paramount. I cannot help but feel slighted and betrayed, especially because he had to finance the car. It was also not cheap. It was over half his annual income. I told him the man I fell in love with would not cave to what largely amounts to peer pressure. I did ask if he at the very least wanted the car. He said no. He just did it so people would shut up and not feel so out of place. He told me I would never understand what it is like, and he is right, I will not. But as I told him, I cannot help but feel betrayed and my trust is broken. I feel as if I may have been too harsh with him, but I also cannot shake how I feel either. Edit. As mentioned, yes, he used his bonus, but he still had to finance the car. The bonus was not enough to buy it outright. Also, our finances are joint. Update. Thanks for the replies. I have yet to get to all of them. I'm going to let it go for now. But I did ask him if he did this to prove he is an alpha male, as some have suggested. How exactly is it an alpha move to get pressured by people to do something? And if you did this to fit in, why would you want to fit in with people who don't respect you? I told him this car would not change what they think of him. I'm going to make sure his car payment comes out of his portion, and I will also make sure he makes his contributions to the house. And if he does not, I will be creating a separate account. I am sorry for those who think what he did is what a man does. What he did was more childlike than anything. I am perfectly fine with calling him out for what he is at this point. And if he ever wants a younger wife who just shuts up and does what he wants and never questions him, fine. I was fine before we met. If he ends up cheating or upgrading, I will be fine after. Also, the no talking about work rule at home is something he suggested. As he stated, at work he has to be a different person, always on. When he gets home, he wants to be himself, and as such, he never wants to bring that world home. Sadly, he did bring that world home when he bought that car. That car will be a reminder of the world he allegedly did not like. I'm sure with time I can look past this, but as of right now, watching a grown man fall prey to high school-like politics is dumb AF. I also know many wealthy people, and trust me, you would never know it by looking at them. Those who need to take on debt to fit in are not doing anyone any favors. Debt to show off, no matter how you cut it, is 100% dumb. Hell, he could have bought a fully loaded used Tesla and paid it outright with his bonus. He let his ego get ahead of his judgment, and honestly, I would not want an attorney that acts on impulse and emotion like that. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the a-hole. On a personal note, I used to get hounded by a coworker for driving an old car. I ended up bragging about not having a car payment and how wonderful debt freedom feels. That person's face fell, and she admitted that her car payments were awful, and she dropped it altogether. So there are other ways your hubby could have and should have handled it, but it sounds like his lack of assertiveness may be a problem for him. Comment 2. Attorney here. Yes, for a high-end firm, it looks odd to clients if you don't drive a nice car. That said, you also don't want a divorce over lack of communication and financial issues. He should have discussed it with her. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since I last posted about the whole car situation with my husband. I've had some time to cool off and think things through, and a lot has happened since then. I wanted to give you all an update because your advice and perspectives really helped me out. So, after our initial argument, things were pretty tense at home. My husband, let's call him Mike, was clearly upset that I wasn't on board with his decision. I was still feeling betrayed, not just because of the car, but because he made such a big financial decision without talking to me first. We've always been a team, especially when it comes to money. A few days ago, we finally sat down to have a real heart-to-heart about everything. I learned that Mike had been feeling more and more isolated at work. He shared stories I hadn't heard before, like how he was left out of important client meetings and how his opinions were often overlooked. He felt like the car was a symbol, that if he could just fit in a little better, maybe things would change for him at the firm. I told him about my concerns, how I felt like he was losing himself in trying to be someone he's not. I reminded him of the time we went on that backpacking trip through Europe, staying in hostels and living on a shoestring budget. We had the time of our lives because we were together and didn't care about impressing anyone. That's the man I fell in love with, the one who valued experiences over things. Mike listened, really listened, and I could see the regret in his eyes. He admitted that buying the car was a knee-jerk reaction to the pressure he felt at work. He didn't want the car, not really. It was just a band-aid for a bigger issue. Now here's where things get interesting. The next day, Mike went to work and something unexpected happened. His mentor, the one who suggested renting a car for the Christmas party, pulled him aside. Apparently, there had been some talk around the office after Mike showed up with the new car. Some were impressed, but others, it turns out, respected him more when he was just being himself. His mentor admitted that he was wrong to suggest changing just to fit in and apologized to Mike. This was a huge moment for Mike. It was like he finally saw that he didn't need to change who he was to be successful. He decided then and there to sell the car. He realized that the financial strain wasn't worth it and that he'd rather be true to himself. But wait, there's more. Mike's decision to sell the car actually started a bit of a revolution at the firm. A couple of other colleagues came forward, admitting they were also feeling the pressure to keep up appearances. They started a conversation about the toxic work culture and how it was affecting everyone's mental health. It's been a whirlwind at the firm since then. There's talk of starting a wellness program and even discussions about a more casual dress code. Mike's been at the center of it all, advocating for a healthier work environment where people can be themselves. As for us, we're doing better. We're communicating more and making sure we're on the same page with our finances. Mike's contributions to the household haven't changed, and we're both committed to sticking to our budget. We've even started planning another backpacking trip, this time to South America. It's something to look forward to, a reminder of what really matters to us. I'm proud of Mike for standing up for what he believes in and for starting a positive change at his workplace. It's not easy to go against the grain, but he's doing it, and I'm right there with him. My best friend's parents exploded on me for supporting her coming out. They tried to tear us apart, but our secret hangout said otherwise. And then she. So I am a 16-year-old female in a class with Annie, who is a 15-year-old female. Annie is really smart, which is why she's in this high-level class despite being a freshman, while most of the class are juniors, but she's also kind of sheltered. We sit next to each other, and we're kind of friends, and I've learned that the reason she's so sheltered is because her parents are fundamentalist Christians. She told me once that her parents exempted her from our school's intimacy education, but that she figured out where babies come from anyway, because in biology class, they told us how other mammals have babies, and humans can't be that different, right? She also mentioned one time that her parents tried to pull her out of that same biology class because evolution was on the curriculum, but the school wouldn't let them. Now, I don't have a problem with her religion. I'm a Christian too, and my family goes to a progressive church where everyone is accepted. Her beliefs have never gotten in the way of our friendship despite me being a leftist tomboy who wants to be an evolutionary biologist. Anyway, I have a homosexual pride pin on my jacket, and a few weeks before winter break, Annie asked me about it. Turns out she didn't know what a pride flag even was. When I explained what it was and what it meant, she gasped and said, "But isn't it a sin to date another girl?" I was a little taken aback because she never struck me as the hateful type. I explained that some people believe that it is a sin, my church and I don't, and I asked her, rhetorically, why God would make people gay and then punish them for it. She said that she would think about it and then change the subject. The next time I saw her, I was a little worried, but when she got to class, she sat down and excitedly told me that she'd been reading her Bible and praying, and that she doesn't think that a girl loving another girl is a sin anymore. She started quoting passages to me, and we talked theology for a while. It was a great discussion, and I came out of it even more convinced that she's a kind, not hateful person. The next Monday, I got called down to the counselor's office, and they sat me down across from the vice principal, social worker, and psychologist. They told me that I'd been accused of intimacy harassment, and they asked me some questions about what kind of language I use when I talk to my female peers. I answered honestly that I never talk about intimacy because it makes me uncomfortable. They took notes and let me go after an hour. When I got home, my parents told me that they were really disappointed in me because they didn't raise me to sexually harass people. I was so confused because I've never done anything even remotely close to intimacy harassment. Eventually, the school got back to my parents and me and told us that I'd been cleared of any wrongdoing. Annie messaged me via her school email to apologize. Apparently, she'd mentioned to her parents that I'd told her that being gay isn't a sin and that they'd freaked out and called the school. She told me that her parents would be transferring her out of our shared class. I told my parents the story to make sure that they know I'm not some perv. And they told me that I was being insensitive by telling Annie about my sexuality, that I should have known there would be an issue because of how Annie is being raised. Did I bring this on myself? Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Imagine if you were 16 years old and you mentioned this to her in passing, and she didn't understand what it meant. And you explained that you were attracted to men, and she told her parents and the school got involved in the same way. Do you think the school or your parents would have said this was problematic? I think not. Yet it is no different than your case except for the homophobia. Maybe there is nothing you can do about the school, but this is an important educational moment for your parents to learn how to be better allies. Please push back. Not the idiot. Comment 2. I'm so sorry this happened to you. What's truly abuse is the treatment this poor girl has faced from her parents and the lack of care the school has given both to you and her. The school has failed you both. You are not a groomer, abuser, or even a sinner for being unapologetically you. That girl needs saving from her family. If you're brave enough, I'd try unteaching her these messed up things she's been taught by her parents and church. This type of religion is a cult, and this type of parenting is child abuse. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a wild couple of weeks, and I've got some updates that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So, after the whole mess with the false accusation and Annie's parents deciding to pull her out of our class, things took an unexpected turn. Annie and I hadn't spoken much since the incident, but one day she approached me with a look of determination I hadn't seen before. She handed me a note and quickly walked away before I could say anything. I opened the note and my heart raced as I read it. Annie had written that she couldn't stop thinking about our conversation on sexuality and that it had sparked something in her. She confessed that she might have feelings for another girl in our class, and she was scared and confused because of her upbringing. She didn't know who else to turn to but me. I was shocked. Annie, the girl who had been so sheltered by her parents that she didn't even know what a pride flag was now questioning her own sexuality. I knew I had to be there for her, despite the risks involved. We started meeting secretly during lunch in the library, where Annie poured her heart out. She told me about her crush, how she'd lie awake at night thinking about her, and how guilty she felt because of her parents' beliefs. I listened and offered support, telling her that her feelings were natural and nothing to be ashamed of. Meanwhile, at home, things were tense. My parents were still upset about the whole situation, and they kept reminding me to be careful about what I said and did around Annie. They were worried about more backlash from her parents, but I couldn't just abandon Annie when she needed me the most. One day, Annie's parents showed up at school unexpectedly. They demanded to speak with the principal, and word quickly spread that they were there to officially transfer Annie out of the school. My heart sank as I thought about how this would affect her, especially now that she was dealing with so much internally. But then, the most jaw-dropping moment happened. In the middle of the hallway, with her parents there, Annie stood up to them. She told them she wasn't going to leave the school, that she had friends here, and that she was starting to figure out who she was. Her parents were furious, and there was a heated argument right there in front of everyone. The confrontation ended with Annie's parents storming out of the school and Annie in tears. I rushed over to comfort her, and she clung to me, whispering that she was sorry for everything that had happened. The next few days were a blur. Rumors swirled around the school about Annie standing up to her parents, and people started looking at her differently. Some were supportive, while others whispered behind her back. Annie seemed to grow stronger from the experience, though. She started participating more in class and even joined a few clubs. As for our friendship, it deepened. We continued our secret meetings, and I watched as Annie slowly started to accept herself. She even started wearing a small rainbow bracelet, a silent nod to her journey of self-discovery. But just when I thought things were settling down, another bombshell dropped. Annie's parents had been talking to other parents, spreading rumors about me being a bad influence on their daughter. My parents were called into a meeting with the principal to discuss the situation. I was furious. I hadn't done anything wrong, and now my reputation was on the line because I had tried to be a good friend. My parents were upset too, but they stood by me, telling the principal that I was just supporting a friend in need. The meeting ended with the principal assuring my parents that the school didn't believe the rumors and that they valued me as a student. But the damage was done. The whispers and stares from other students hurt, and I felt betrayed by Annie's parents. Despite everything, Annie and I remained friends. We knew that the road ahead would be tough, but we also knew that we had each other's backs. And as for Annie's crush, well, let's just say that they've been spending a lot of time together lately, and I've never seen Annie happier. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.